Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set, cocked, locked? Okay, here we go. Your dial set correctly to USA Prepares. We're delighted you're with us today. We broadcast from Missouri, high atop the Missouri Ozark Mountains, right from the farm. And 2 hours, Monday through Friday. Nathan is engineering the broadcast. Thank you so much, Nathan, for being with us today. Rich Sheben's with us. He's on the line. Offgridmontana.com, offgridmontana.com. Welcome, Rich Scheben.
Well, thank you, Vincent Finelli. How are you this morning?
Very, very well. You know, Rich, you have said many times, now correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that you have said something like this, if not exactly like this. If they do it, you should do it too. And I'm talking about the elite. If they can do it, we should be able to do it too. Is that right?
Yeah, I say that in the context of standing for principle. One is we should have the same rules, laws, and accountability for everybody. Two, everything should be about the truth, or else why would you listen? Why would you read? Why would you speak? Why would you learn if it's all about propaganda, lies, and false flags and blowing smoke up people's ass? And three, and this is what you're referring to, if somebody has less consequences for their behavior, then everybody should have the ability to do it. And if two wrongs don't make a right, as some people feel, well, let's have practice what you preach laws, which I've said over hundreds of radio stations over the last 6 years many times. And it's not just for the elite. And they're using the bottom approximately 93% to create chaos and infighting against each other. The elite are allowing us to poison us against ourselves. And this is what I'm trying to wake people up to realize, that they're being distracted, dumbed down, and divided by every group possible: race, gender, sex, religion, ideology, and even there's a war against the generations now. And this is all to create the race baiting and the divide and conquer attitude and philosophy, which destroys culture, traditions, and heritage that America has stood for, that's made us great, where American exceptionalism is only a term and no longer being proven. Vince?
Okay, so I'd like to tie what your thoughts are with a concrete example at the highest level of royalty. And I'm being very, very serious. So I have said over the years, hey, we're going to have a seminar. You know, I'm going to be giving a seminar on how to avoid paying taxes. Pay the same taxes that the rich pay, which is very little, if any. Okay, start your own business and enjoy the tax deductions that they have set up, and you can take, that are absolutely legal, above board, bona fide. But you can do it, but you just have to know what you can do. So you have to read a little bit, which is what you just mentioned. Okay, you do have to pay attention. So here's the scenario. So there's a royal wedding coming up, right? And Europe is getting ready. England is really paying attention to this, and there are all kinds of articles about this royal wedding, Meghan Markle and Prince Harry. Now, they have decided that, well, the reception is going to be a little different. It's not going to be one of those where you sit down and you have fine dining and exotic food, which you might expect from royalty, right? What they're going to have is a stand-up reception. No seating. You stand up. Now, they have billed this as, and it's very clever what they did, but it's the same thing that we have done here at USA Prepares, which is, if they do it, you can do it. what they've done is they said, well, we're going to have this reception, and it's a networking reception. So you get a chance, see, if you're sitting down, you wouldn't get a chance to meet as many people. But they have billed this publicly as a networking reception. And the food that they are going to serve is going to be, you can eat this in 1 or 2 bites. So it's morsels of food rather than, a steak or chicken or whatever that you might expect at a typical wedding. So here's what you do, class, and I'm being very serious about this. So put all this together. They are having a networking reception. Now, if their tax laws are similar to ours, that means it is, well, hey, it's a business expense. They said it. They said it's a networking opportunity. They're billing this as a business adventure. Okay, that means it's tax deductible. Okay, so now how do we apply this to ourselves? By the way, Rich, I've been thinking about this all morning. All morning since you and I talked, I've been thinking about this is what they do. They are showing us in plain view without really letting us understand. So here's what it is. It's a business. It's a business expense, this wedding. All of it. So what we do is we say we're going to start a business. And how do you start your business? You say, I'm in business. Okay. I've said to those who are going to come to the seminar and hear what I had to say about tax deductions and paying for your preparedness items through tax deductions, I said, well, what you do is you say you're in business right now. Then if you want to impress me and get a new pair of blue jeans and a new belt and maybe a new shirt, those are all tax deductions because you're going to come see Vinny at the seminar where you're going to learn during this educational experience, which is another tax deduction and mileage going to and from, and meals and hotel and all that. If that's what you do, all that, those are tax deductions because now you're in business. All right. Well, so let's just make it really simple. So class, this summer you're probably going to consider inviting some people over. Well, the only reason you would invite people over, and that could be family and it could be friends and neighbors, and it's a networking opportunity. Okay? So you say, hey, we're having a barbecue and networking opportunity. Come on over, and we're going to have hot dogs and hamburgers or whatever you're going to have, chicken, ribs, whatever you're going to do. Now, those are all expenses that are tax deductible because you're in business, and you are doing this in order to build your clientele or your customer base. Because family can be customers, okay? That's what they are doing. And Rich said, so if they do it, you can do it. Any comments, Rich Scheben?
Well, that's what we need to do because who knows whether it be royalty or big corporate America, oligarchies, or big government. A lot of when the information so-called leaks or it's created purposely to let the people see what's going on, there's always multiple reasons. And it could be subliminal messaging to the people, to groom or program the people. You made a little comment about eating morsels. Maybe they're trying to make the people realize that tough times coming with a global recession / depression, and they're showing the little people that we need to eat less because even though they have the resources to never eat less than they want, they're basically leaving these messages to the people. But as far as the business, if that was your message, Vince, as far as the creating a business and networking and things like that, absolutely, and that's one of the reasons why we do these programs, and we talk about buying land like we have and getting people to buy hobby farms, at least 20 acres where they can learn those lost 19th century skills, but dovetail them with 21st century technology, like raising animals, having a garden, doing a little hunting and fishing, and really being a thinker instead of letting the aristocracy cultivate and groom you to be a follower with no skill sets. And we talked about this morning where today's youth, I'm reading so many articles, where they are more depressed, high anxiety, they're not sleeping, they're more obese than any generation out there. Generals are saying 70 to 80% of today's youth are unfit for service. I mean, I can go on and on and on. suicide rates, you name it. And it's because of social media, because of the imbalance between nature and technology that is getting worse with generations, with time. And this is why we have to go back to some of the old ways. Because with what's coming in our economy, and that's one of the reasons I talk about Economics 101 all the time, and I have some economic updates I'd like to get to today if we have time. I mean, we're at a stagflationary environment, which is a deflationary spiral, but stagflationary to the bottom 93%. It's the worst of both scenarios, inflation and deflation. And because of all the money printing and the subsidies and the special interest and the lobbying and the PACs and all the money being redirected from what was the middle class to the wealthy. And one example is what I talk about often on the air is quantitative easing. 95% of that money that's been created out of thin air, which the burden of cost shifting goes to the bottom 93%, all that money goes to the top 1 to 7% of income. And with the new industrial revolution of robotics, automation, artificial intelligence, and the technocracy that we have, never mind political correctness and corruption, manipulation, deception, nepotism, and everything that's holding back the little people, again, the bottom 93% of income earners, we find ourselves hitting a brick wall when this recession hits because the debt loads, the credit's collapsing with the yield curves, and I have talked with a lot of specificity and detail about that over the past 6 to 8 months. And people have to start networking. They have to start thinking. They have to start talking about plan Bs, Cs, and Ds. And that's why we practice what we preach regarding the lifestyle that we talk about over the air. And it's not as hard as most people think. But think about the fact, folks, that 90% of us live in urban, suburban America, and only 10% of us live rural. And if we have tough times coming, whether it be getting food, whether it be lifestyle, whether it be happiness, it's not going to be achieved for the poor middle class in urban, suburban America. Vince?
Yeah, and the email address, if you want to contact us and ask us any questions, instructor@usaprepares.com. Instructor@usaprepares.com. Rich Scheben and I will be right back. Rich Scheben's with us, and we're talking about a simple principle. If it's okay for them to do it, it's okay for you to do it. And we've been talking about tax deductions, and we've been talking about how you can start your own business and avoid paying taxes the same way the rich do. I mean, they're actually showing you in plain sight, but you just have to look at what they're doing and say, why are they doing that? So when you look at this wedding and they say, you know, we're going to have these little morsels and it's stand up, it's not going to be a sit-down wedding traditionally, ask yourself why. And it's right in front of us. It really is. So you can do this too. So if you have that barbecue in your backyard and you set up your business and all you do is you say, I'm in business, and you say to your, you know, if you're a husband or the wife, say, hey, you know, well, let's have a barbecue. Let's invite the family. Let's invite the friends and, you know, the neighbors, and we'll have a networking opportunity, and we'll call them up, or when we see them at the store or wherever we go and run into them, or we send out a little, you know, notice, or we send them an email. Hey, we're having a barbecue and networking opportunity. We want you all to meet each other, and we'd love to have us all meet together. And now you're in business. Now, that's what Amway did, right? Amway would have these little get-togethers, and they were tax deductible, okay? And Mary Kay and, you know, all that kind of stuff. It's the same thing. That's what they do. So you can do it, too. Okay? Now, you don't have to sell Mary Kay. You don't have to sell Amway. You just start your own business. And you may say, I want to be in business, but I'm not really sure what I want to do. So I'm looking for some ideas. So let's have a cookout. And, you know, we'll be talking with friends and family, and maybe that idea will germinate right there. And then we'll figure out what the business is going to do. But in the meantime, we're going to start that business. Now, I'm being very serious about this, class, because this is, you know, educational opportunities are deductible. And that's what this is. It's an education. And when I go to speak, I say this is an educational opportunity, not a business opportunity, an educational/business opportunity. Because if it's educational, the meals are 100% deductible. If it's business, it's 50% deductible. So I make sure everybody understands it's educational. So it's more deductible, greater percentage. And there are a lot of things that you can do for tax deductions. And Rich, let me just share one of them. Just one small tax deduction. So I've decided that I'm concerned, and Rich and I talked about this morning. I'm concerned about where the economy is going. And I want to make sure that we're prepared for it. Now, we have tractors and we have equipment, but it takes a 100-horsepower tractor to run our balers, our round balers. And we bale 1,000-pound bales of hay. Well, if anything goes wrong with that tractor, I won't be able to bale that 1,000 pounds of hay with the baler we have, even if the baler works great, if something goes wrong with the tractor. It could be as simple as a fan belt. Lose a fan belt, can't get one, can't run the tractor because the tractor will overheat and self-destruct. So what do? So I bought a square baler. Now, let me tell you what I did. So there was a farmer who the farm was sold, and they were selling a John Deere baler made in 1958 or 59. They wanted $1,800 for this square baler. This is when you see bales of hay at the store, that's the machine that makes those. So they're about 50 pounds a piece, and they're square and they're long. They're called square bales. Well, the machine that this farmer was selling was a John Deere brand made in 1958 or 1959. We're talking 60 years old. And he wanted $800 for it. And our son and I looked at it. We drove about 100 miles each way to go look at it, and we decided not to buy it. The next day, we bought a different one, a New Holland brand, New Holland. And the premier balers at that time were New Holland and John Deere. Those were the big baling companies with the best equipment. So this is top of the line, but it's 60 years old. And I bought it I paid the man exactly what he asked for it. 18 cents a pound. 18 cents a pound for a piece of machinery that works. Now it's rust colored and it needs, some lubrication, and I might put some bearings and, some chains in it and that kind of thing and tune it up. But 18 cents a pound. It weighs 2,675 pounds. Now, it doesn't exactly work the way it is. So for me, it's parts. I bought a bucket of parts. 2,675 pounds worth of steel. Bearings, shafts, knives, forks, wheels, tires, okay? 18 cents a pound. What a deal. It's a tax deduction. And, I may decide that I don't like it. And I may sell it. But just talking about it and sharing this with you, it's a tax deduction. Because I'm going to tell you, over the year or two that we spent time, working on it, what it was like, what that experience was like. It's a tax deduction for me, in many ways. Because I'm on the radio talking about it, because I'm a farmer and I'm going to use it. So I can deduct this. And you can do the same things. And it all comes from what Rich Scheben said. If they can do it, you can do it. And one of the key points that we were hoping to drive home today in this broadcast, and Rich Scheben, I'm sure will say it very well, that if you want to pursue this kind of a lifestyle where you're having fun all the time, if this sounds like it's fun to you, gardening, machinery, learning about everything, that's what we do. We're having fun all the time. I mean, it's the minute the broadcast is over, sometimes people call, they want to talk to me. I'm gone. I'm having fun. Well, some people might call it working. I don't know if it's working. To me, I'm just out there on the farm doing the kinds of things that I want to do. Why? Because I want to do them. Now, I know that there's some things that are necessary, like the animals need to eat and we need to feed them. Yeah, we got to do that. But it's fun. It's fun having animals. I moved the studio downstairs from the second floor to the first floor, converted our dining room. I'm looking out the window at two little calves. They're right next to they can rub their noses on the studio window. If they moo and talk to each other, you'll hear them, because I've got the window open. And here's what's really neat. Our farm is a couple 100 acres. I'm not bragging. I'm just telling you the way it is. And the county said, all right, well, Vinny, that's the farm, and we're going to assign 1 acre to you for your house. And we're going to charge you about 50 times more in taxes for that 1 acre than we charge for all the other acres because they're agricultural acres. Well, I fenced in the house. I fenced these little calves in so that they can go right up and rub their noses on the house. Now I'm going to tell the tax people that the only amount of space that we use on this 1 acre is for the footprint of the house. The rest is for the farm. So I'm going to reduce the amount of taxes I pay by just changing a piece of electric fence. I'm looking at every way I can to reduce our expenses to the other team. So you look at the royal wedding. Now you know how they did it. So, class, I fly by the audio. I don't fly by the clock. Even though I'm looking right at an atomic clock, I don't pay a lot of attention to it. So when I hear the intro and the outro, the music, if you will, that's my cue to either stop talking or start talking. And so I was talking to myself at the end of the last segment for about 3 minutes. And so here's the gist of it. You can do what they do, and that's what Rich Scheben talks about. So in this baler example, this baler that was built in 1958 or 1959 that I paid 18 cents a pound for, it's a tax deduction. Now, I don't know how to use, adjust, maintain, or operate this baler. I've never operated one. Well, so I have this tax deduction, which is the purchase of this old antique baler, and I'm going to need some manuals. And those manuals are a tax deduction. And I'm going to need some grease. And I'm going to need some parts. Those are all tax deductions. And I might say, shoot, you know what? I need a computer out in the barn so that I can do some research without walking in and out of the house. So if I did, I could buy a used computer for, I don't know, a couple $100 on eBay. I might buy an old Dell computer with a monitor and a keyboard. And I might say, well, let's put that in the barn. Shoot, I need to run Ethernet cable out to the barn. I'm going to have to buy that. I'm going to need to run some outlets out in the... Heck, I don't have electricity in the barn. I'm going to have to run electricity. Now, what I'm saying, I'm trying to give you a way of reading between the lines. Okay? So if you start your business, you can do all kinds of things that you might have put off, but you'd like to do, but now it's your business doing it. And these are all tax deductions. And if you want to know how to do it, read Publication 17. Go to irs.gov and download Pub 17. It's the condensed rule book. And you'll be grinning from ear to ear. Absolutely. And you'll be fighting the system, probably fighting the system the way I do. You say, well, these thugs are stealing from us. I can give myself a $5,000 raise just by playing with the rules. They're rules. Rich?
Well, yeah, we're at the point now, America, that we have to stop saying, what are they going to do? Because only the aristocracy knows. We have to start saying, what are we going to do? Because what's going to be of value down the road? Is it going to be the dollar? Is it going to be a domestic dollar and an international dollar for the elite? And we'll be living off of pennies with the domestic dollar that's been devalued. Is it going to be an IMF-run special drawing rights or SDR? Is gold and silver going to shine? Is it going to be crypto? There's so many. Precious metals has been so manipulated for so many years. I hear that gold and silver is going to go through the roof. Nobody knows that because supply and demand and free markets is no longer running the show. There's a war against truth, freedom, liberty, common sense, logic, math, self-sufficiency, and the middle class. All these politically correct buzzwords like equality, fairness, tolerance, diversity, accountability, transparency, inclusiveness, democracy, humanity, they're all BS. They mean nothing. They're hijacked by definition to use as a tool to basically make us infight and create chaos. They're tools basically used against the people. So that means options, synergy, tolerance in this pro-fascism, pro-aristocracy world is not for the little people. And I got to keep reminding everybody that the little people, in the definition context that I use, is the bottom 93% of income earners. Now, I've said this on the air before, and I'm going to say it again. It's so important to talk about Economy 101. Now, the American corporations, protected by the corporate oligarchies and the lawyers and the judges and mainstream media and Hollywood and everything else, what's American corporations are leveraged to the hilt. So they're doing a lot of these creative accounting games. Corporate debt is the highest level for U.S. GDP since 2008. We all know what happened in 2008. Now, it's so important that we talk about some economic 101 things because we can see what's happening. You look at stock buybacks. Okay, Apple bought $23.5 billion, a record amount. You could build several border walls just with that, and not to mention the highest dividend payout ever. And 1%, regarding dividends, 1% of the people own 83% of the stock, 10% own 96% of the stock. 8 people, the wealthiest 8 people in the world, mostly in the U.S., own a higher net worth than half of the globe combined. Now, when you look at the amount Apple just recently spent on stock buybacks, the shares have exceeded what the stock market value is regarding most companies in the S&P 500. The first quarter of 2018 was the biggest quarter on record for buybacks at $242 billion. So they say, well, it's our money, we're a private company. But you look at a lot of companies, a lot of industries, from automobile to insurance to Wall Street to banks. The little people bailed them out with QE. And as I mentioned earlier, 95% of that money goes to the top 1% to 7%. And this is why I talk about QE for the people. This is why I talk about practice what you preach laws. This is why I talk about self-sufficiency preparedness schools and hobby farms and learning the old ways but dovetailing them with 21st century technology. You look at Latin America in general, basically from the tip of Mexico all the way down to the tip of South America. Short-term rates are skyrocketing. And this is going to happen here. In fact, it is happening here. And some people are predicting that by this fall, we're going to have an inversion in the yield curve. Now, this is very dangerous because most banks borrow at the 2-year, for example, and they need low interest rates for a better spread. So that creates solvency. And that's what QE basically has done, has created liquidity for the banks. Well, now that we're going from QE to QT, which is quantitative tightening, okay, consumer confidence is going to drop. Debt's going to continue to go up. Words like default and bankruptcy is going to shoot to the moon. We're in a situation where we have no savings and very little business where the banks can sell their loans to get the spread, because when they borrow short-term, they need to lend long-term. And that's what, in short, make a long story short, what the yield curve is all about. But these share buybacks have created not just dividends to the wealthiest people in America, but the executive cashing in their stock option has made, this has been, instead of taking that 35% corporate tax rate, which is now 21%, and giving that money to the people in the form of research and development, employees, bonuses, goods and services, they're doing the exact opposite. In a situation where high yield and junk bonds won't be able to pay back their investors, again, that's another word for default, margin debt's an all-time high. This is going to force sales of assets and collateral and trigger a huge collapse. So less new products and more money chasing less goods. So they're manufacturing fake inflation. And again, this is not just, you hear these words when you read Zero Hedge, and I read 50 different economists, okay, on a regular basis. And it's unbelievable how many different opinions there are out there. But when you look at the facts, for example, the S&P companies were expected to buy back $800 billion of their own stock in buybacks for the purpose of dividends and stock options and mergers and acquisitions, which mergers and acquisitions in today's industry basically means consolidation, more firing, and more creation of robotics and automation and artificial intelligence, which is going to displace more and more people. So thinking outside the box and being self-sufficient, like Vince loves working on vehicles and tractors, and he has a a knack for mechanics. You could also have a knack for gardening, or a knack for alternative energy, or a knack for hunting and fishing, or a knack for harvesting edible and medicinal plants, or a knack for helping other people. And this is, whatever it may be, you have to follow your interests and hobbies and live where you recreate and think outside the box. All these things I've talked about for years and years over the air on many a radio show. And the biggest war is on the distortion of truth. And these are all subsets under political correctness, like group identity politics, et cetera, et cetera. But we cannot, we have a demographic issue that's going to hit us hard. Central bank, corrupt monetary policies for so many years, and Keynesian economics that dovetails with group identity politics is going to put us in the biggest recession, possible depression we've ever seen. And this is why we need to talk about Economics 101. We need to talk about truth. We need to talk about objective facts in lieu of subjective emotional opinion. How many people out there realize that 20% of the companies in the Russell 2000 and 10% of the S&P 500 have to borrow money just to pay their interest? That's not being in business. That's called a zombie company. How many people realize that unemployment numbers are totally BS? Because you got to look at the labor participation rate from the 25 to 54-year-olds. There's almost 100 million people out of work. So if you stop looking for work for a month, you're not considered. That's bogus. How many people? And we all use the unit of measure of GDP, but GDP is bogus. It doesn't mean anything. Depending on which author you read, it takes between $3 and $6 of debt, new debt, to create $1 of growth. So we need to think about things like, for the bottom 93%, which I try to address and help, we need to think about terminology like savings, being debt-free, foresight thinking. Remember, there's many different types of smarts out there. People talk about book smarts all the time because it's more related to memory. Well, if you can't apply it, it means diddly squat. There's foresight smarts, there's street smarts, there's nature smarts. There's many different smarts out there. And with what's coming economically, it's going to be a disaster for most people. So we're trying to give you ideas and solutions for that. Vince?
Yeah, it's structure at usaprepares.com if you want to contact us. We'll be right back. A few days ago, I was at a barbecue kind of a thing, and the word vacation came up. And I was talking to some senior citizens, and I mentioned that I'm on vacation all the time. I mean, doing what you want to do, having fun. You know, I get to play with the toys that I want to play with, and it's all part of the business, the farm. It's what I like to do. But I'm on vacation all the time, because if I want to go talk to the cows, I do that. If I want to hop on a four-wheeler, check the fields, I can do that. If I want to hop on a dirt bike, I can do that. If I want to get, hop on the equipment, I can do that. If I want to climb on the roof and make some repairs, I can do that. But it's all fun to me, okay? And so if this makes sense to you, that if you think that these things are fun, and gardening, like we've talked about, Rich has got a fabulous garden. If you want to go, hunting on your own property, there are a lot of cool things you can do. And so it's like an eternal vacation for me. So during the break, I went to the search engine, I typed in average, here are the exact words, average cost of vacation. And I hit enter. I'm stunned. So the average cost according to American Express, this is in 2014, so it's actually probably more expensive now than it was in 2014. But the latest information I can find is the average cost of a vacation per person is $1,145. So for a family of four, it's $4,580 for vacation. That's, where you spend money that you can't get back for entertainment or fun. Well, I'm shocked. I'm stunned, because I'm thinking $4,580. I bought a tractor, a baler, a hay wagon, and some other stuff for less. For less than the average family of four vacation in the United States. Okay? I bought my truck for less. 2/3 of that. Less than 2/3 of that. I'm stunned at how much people waste money. Gosh. But, at the end of the day, or, as they get in their senior years, and if they do that kind of stuff and they look around and they go, well, honey, what do we have to show for what we went on vacation. Remember that? Wasn't that a great time? We're broke, but wasn't that fun? To me, that's nuts. Absolutely nuts. Rich, what are your thoughts?
Well, that's one of the reasons why debt is an all-time high right now. And it's just not just consumer, but it's corporate, it's municipal, state, it's all government levels. When you think about the lifestyle that you were just talking about and the imbalance between nature and technology, nature offers adventure, freedom, liberty, curiosity. You gain skill sets. Could be gardening, growing non-GMO produce, alternative energy, raising animals, hunting, fishing, preserving foods. The imbalance between nature and technology is destroying, especially our youth. And we need a balance between everything. I mean, even political correctness has gotten to the point where people are afraid to tell jokes because someone might be offended, and that's the biggest bunch of BS I've ever heard. These are all done subliminally to break our will and make us more submissive, so the powers that be can call us racist, bigot, sexist, misogynist, homophobe, intolerant, violent, hater, et cetera, et cetera. So new technologies are not really benefiting the people. They're used to deceive the little people, not to help them, but to create things like censorship, surveillance, police states, smart meters, vaccines, GMO foods, Wi-Fi, 5G, and the RF waves, and the geoengineering, and I can increase that list dramatically. The benefits to the little people for the technology is not a double-edged sword. We all say it. I've said it. But the bad part about it is that it cuts way deeper against the poor people. It's just like all these new gambling and online sport betting that they're talking about. It's not going to help anybody, just the elite. It's going to hurt the most vulnerable, which is the bottom 93% of Americans. Vince?
Well, what was coming to mind is the lottery. People who gamble at the lottery. That's a voluntary tax on the mathematically challenged, right? You're not going to win. Yeah. Hour number 2 is coming up right after top of the hour news and commercial announcements. I'm going to go outside and look at my brand new hay wagon. I'm all excited about it. I'll tell you a little bit about it when we come back. Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. Rich Sheben's with us. And Rich, just as we're ending the last segment, I was watching our son pull the wagon, the hay wagon that we bought yesterday, off our trailer, because we bought a wagon or a trailer and we put it on a trailer to take it home, and he just hooked up a tractor to it, a 40 horsepower international tractor, and he pulled the hay wagon off the trailer, and now it's parked right outside the studio. So I'm looking at my brand new, to me, hay wagon. And it was made, Rich, it's interesting. This hay wagon is like the wagons that you would get a hayride on. Looks just like that. It can be horse-drawn. It can be tractor-pulled. And it can carry between 6 and 8, easily 6 tons. It's pretty heavy. That's a lot of weight, an enormous amount of weight, 6 and 8 tons. So that was another tax deduction. And, I'm thinking, would I rather have the price of less than 2 months of the average American going out, buying a single person, just one, I don't mean a person that's not married, I just mean one person going out to eat for a month and a half is on the average that an American would spend going out to eat, whether it be breakfast, lunch, or dinner, just combine all that. A month and a half of that is what I paid for this hay wagon. And to me, that's a no-brainer. I'm not going to go out to eat if I can have a hay wagon instead. Why would I do that? And then when I'm all done, I have a hay wagon. That's an asset. It's an asset that I can use, I can sell, I can treat it as an investment. It's useful. And that's, Rich, that's what you and I do. We buy what some people would consider toys, big boy toys, big girl toys, and they're tax deductions. Where other people buy the big boy toys and big girl toys, and they're not tax deductions. It'd be crazy to buy it and have it not be a tax deduction. To me. Absolutely crazy. So that, class, if you're interested in this lifestyle, we'll help you. And we're interested in finding out, is anybody interested in what we're saying? So what we've done is we've set up an email address. It's instructor@USA Prepares, USA, PREPARES.com. Instructor@USAPrepares.com. If you got a question, comment, concern, or you're interested in learning more about it, just let us know. Use that email address. It's set up just for that. And we'd love to hear what your thoughts are. If you got something that you'd like to learn about on a broadcast, let us know. We'll talk about it. If you want us to call you and you think that you need some one-on-one discussion, we'll try to make that happen too. Rich, isn't that what we're trying to do?
Absolutely. And what I'd like to do is put an exclamation point on what we were just talking about. And I want to give reasons why our lifestyle, the hobby farm, the farmer, the self-sufficiency, whatever you want to call us, is all about. And I want to mention one last statistic before I go on to the next story, Vince. As usual, we never get through, folks. We never get through 1/10 of the things that we prepare for or want to discuss. It just doesn't happen. And anyway, we'll put an exclamation point on the debt credit situation. In 2007 of November, industrial production was just about 1% higher than it is now, right before the last big crash. And as we know, all the derivatives and all the so-called money printing and the QE and everything that was done to fix the last crash, it wasn't fixed. Okay, they doubled down, tripled down, quadrupled down, and that includes the debt and the whole integrity of the system from Wall Street to credit. Now, the second part of this statistic is very, very important. Today, consumption of durable goods are up 53%, despite the fact that savings is less, wages is less, because we're entering a stagflationary, actually we've been in a stagflationary situation for a long time, and that means that with credit collapsing and the yield curves flattening and about to invert this fall, of course it's all speculation because who knows what kind of book they're going to cook in this rigged system, but that's what the numbers are showing. That's just another reason why being self-sufficient, living below your means, knowing the fine line between needs and wants is so important. And Vince, we discussed this briefly. I've sent you some articles we wanted to discuss. If it's okay with you, I'm just going to move on because this is so relevant to today's culture. And there's an article titled here, America, Trophy Culture. It's a couple, probably a week-old article. Trophy Culture hijacks New Jersey high school cheer squad. Basically, what they're saying is that it doesn't matter if you're overweight, doesn't matter if you've worked hard, doesn't matter if you try out, doesn't matter if you produce proven results, doesn't matter about what your experience is. You can be a cheerleader at Hanover Park High School in New Jersey. So, parents, if you have students in this high school, get them out of there. Because when hard work, effort, proven results, and qualification doesn't mean anything, that's when society breaks down. That's when there's no value or appreciation in anything. And they talk about how competition is healthy and failure is healthy. That's called life of relativity, folks. When you don't have bad times, you're not going to appreciate the good times because that's just the way it is. And, they talk about how these girls are not just throwing around pom-poms, but they're athletes, they're gymnasts, they're competitors. And this is the culture that we have now because this is what political correctness has done. We've talked about this so many times. I mean, there's so many great females out there who really talk about how the social justice warrior, the feminazi culture has destroyed America, and it's basically everything is sanctioned, America. Everything, that means everything discussed or viewed has to be approved by the elite because they own the five companies, the five mainstream media companies. And as we all know, their job is to manufacture perception, pity, guilt, and even manufacture ideology. And that's why, you've heard me talk about how the videos that when they interview people and they say, oh, what do you think about Bernie Sanders saying this or doing this or saying that? And all the so-called liberal progressive people say, oh, great idea. And guess what? They all turned out to be Trump's ideas. So, this is the example of the mainstream media manufacturing ideology and swaying public opinion and wanting to hold on to the narratives, the memes, themes, talking points, and the microphone. And these 5 companies, they don't just own TV and radio and newspaper and magazines, but production companies and publishing companies as well. I've gotten about 40 different offers over the years to do reality shows and documentaries about my lifestyle, but I did not have control of final editing. So basically what they were going to do is exaggerate things, edit things for the benefit of making it less informative and more shock jock, more basically selling the adventure of it and not teaching the people the skill sets that they need to learn. But I want you to
more sensational.
Listen to,
more sensational.
Absolutely. There's some really great women out there, folks, like Katie Hopkins from Rebel Media, Candace Owens, Red Pill Black. Just less than 2 years ago, she was a social justice warrior, a Democrat, a progressive. She admits this. And now she travels around the country giving talks. This lady is in her 20s. She's 100 times more articulate than I am. And she basically has said this, I don't want to be a victim because I'm a black female. Now, what has happened is that we've created, the elite have created these certain movements to lower the bars of standards and expectations. And that's what the divide and conquer strategy has done. Now, Vince, I've said my NFL analogy over the air a few times, and what that really is, folks, I'm going to make a long story short instead of saying the whole thing. It's the San Francisco excuses versus the Montana Average Joes and their football teams, and it's an NFL analogy. And basically, the San Francisco excuses team said that we have victim group status or protectionist group status, so they only had to run the ball 50 yards for a touchdown, where the Montana Average Joes had to run it 100 yards. Montana Average Joes ended up losing the game by a couple of points at the very end. But here are the questions that is so relevant to today's American society and the so-called American exceptionalism, which does not occur anymore. Because we've lowered the bars of standards and expectations so much that we've destroyed American culture and traditions and heritage from within. When you reward mediocrity, you create a law of diminishing return country. So opportunity, knowledge, ingenuity, productivity, innovation, it's only available for the elite few. Now, I want you to listen to these questions regarding the NFL analogy or the football analogy that I referred to, and relating to this particular story about this New Jersey high school. There's 6 questions. First of all, do you respect the San Francisco excuses for their win? Question number 2, do you think this creates synergy with the fans, players, and owners? Question number 3, do you think this makes our country better and stronger regarding work ethic and results? Next question, do you think over time the people will continue to respect the game, the players, the rules, and the refs? Next question, do you think any individual plays by special rules, laws, and accountability just because of the victim group status will be respected? Next, do you think the NFL would prosper or even survive in a free market, supply and demand environment like it has for the past decades if we continue to have different rules, laws, and accountability for different players and teams? See, when you rig the game and you lower the bars of standards and expectations for a certain group, you continue to create this illusion of equality, which brings down the quality of life for everybody in America, where nobody can any longer control their own destiny. And
Rich, when we come back, I'd like to ask you, have you ever participated in a school event, let's say in elementary school, like a science fair? Have you ever competed in one of those? And it's relevant to what you're saying. We'll be right back. Rich Scheben, you've been talking about competition and the quest to be the best and how we're diluting that down in the United States and how everybody's a winner. Have you participated in a science fair in your elementary school?
Let me tell you what I did. Will it be any of my elementary, middle school, or high school career? I wasn't into those fairs. I love playing sports and football and all that stuff, but football was tough because it was hunting and fishing season, even though I lived in the suburbs in New York City. And I would travel up north to do what I did, especially in high school. From the age of 15, I used to go into the New York City nightclubs, and I used to dance all night and not sleep. And I did this up until my early 20s or mid-20s. And then I would drive 3 hours north and bring my fly rod to the Beaver Kill River and fish all day and not even sleep. I took advantage of every awake moment, and I felt like if I slept, I was missing out because I just love life so much, and I take advantage of life wherever I am, whether it be New York City or Northwest Montana. So that being said, I feel that too many people, especially today's youth, are not taking advantage of life. They're letting social media and technology bring them down. That's why anxiety and loneliness, despair, suicides, obesity, and so many negative connotations are associated with the millennial generation. And I think we need to get back to nature and start thinking again, start networking, like you said earlier in the show, start communicating again, and not over social media, but by the fire, the campfire, and talking about hunting and fishing stories and sports and experiences and life and fun and telling jokes and not being politically correct. And that's what we need desperately. Vince?
Well, back in elementary school, I competed in several science fairs. And I'm going to share you with our class what I did. One year, I built, and this is in the 1960s, in elementary school. I built a device that would let you modulate your voice and demodulate it. And literally, I could talk with a microphone across a distance on a light beam. I literally took a microphone signal, kind of like the microphone I'm using now, but it was a very inexpensive one. And I modulated that signal, and I sent it with a parabolic reflector, like a flashlight reflector, across the distance. Got picked up by a photocell. It got demodulated and amplified, and you could hear it out of a speaker. So literally, in the 1960s, you could talk on a light beam. And I won first prize. Another year, I built something called a capacity-operated relay using a vacuum tube. Now, the first one, the talking on a light beam, I used a transistorized amplifier. It had 3 transistors, capacitors, resistors, and a little power supply. And it worked. Absolutely worked. And the second one was a capacity-operated relay. And then let me explain what that is. You've all kind of seen them, but here's what that means. As a person that has mass approaches a plate, there's a capacitance between that plate, and what I used was a piece of aluminum foil on top of an 8.5 by 11 piece of cardboard. It was like the back of a pad of cardboard. I used that, wrapped it in aluminum foil, had a wire that went to this circuit, which was operated by a vacuum tube. And as you got close to it, you put your hand close to it. When you got about, a couple inches away, this circuit would recognize that you were there. And it would throw a switch, a relay. Now, what can you do with that? Well, that is the precursor to, you walk into a supermarket and the door opens automatically. It senses that you're there. So this was a really early version of that. I won first prize. Next year, I built a lie detector. And what I did was I took 2 pennies as electrodes, and I attached them to wires, and I built a vacuum tube amplifier that would measure the resistance across your chest. So the index finger on the left hand, index finger on the right hand would be attached to wires to an amplifier, a vacuum tube amplifier I built, and you could measure the resistance on a meter. We'll be right back. I'll tell you a little bit more about this and why. So the lie detector was kind of a simple procedure. All you did was measure the person's reaction to the questions, and you've seen it on television. They ask some questions to establish a baseline. Then they ask the questions that they want to see if there's a reaction. Is your name Joe Smith? Yes. Do you live on 123 Easy Street? Yes. Are you 35 years old? Yes. Did you murder so-and-so? And so the body reacts to that startling question. And if you get that reaction, you can measure that electrically across from one finger all the way across the arm to the chest and across the other arm to the other finger. And so I built this little amplifier that could amplify these minute electrical changes in the body. Now, I won first prize again. Now, I'm not bragging, and that's not what this is about. And if I had to prove it, I could find, these entries that I had for the science fair. Now, I want to contrast that to today. So I've got on my screen some science fair entries. These two girls are standing by their entry, and it says, Becky, that's a female's name, is a, and then they use a four-letter word that begins with C, a derogatory term that's used sometimes by people who are vulgar about women. That's her entry. Now, this is an elementary school child. Another one is really proud of his entry, and it's the aerodynamics of a bowl-shaped haircut. That's what this guy's really proud of. Another guy, I can't even, this other guy's got experiments on a hobo. Okay? He's got a hobo and he's done something to them, and I can't tell what he did. Another one is this elementary school girl. She's got glasses on, and she says, in her backdrop, says, I hate my blank braces. And the word that I left out begins with letter F. I hate my blank braces. This is an elementary school child who has entered this formally in the science fair. This other guy has one that says, is ham tasty? Ham, the meat, okay? The one that I think is unbelievable. Anybody have the nerve? This is not vulgar, but this gal says how to draw a blank. And she's got these squares outlined on her backdrop. And it says the purpose, and in the square is nothing. It's blank. The problem, defined as nothing. There's a bar graph that has no bar graph. The conclusion has nothing in the square. The results, nothing. The procedure, nothing. This girl enters nothing. How to draw a blank as her science fair project. Right? Another one enters how much lunch money do kids carry? Now that's what he says. I would say children. How much lunch money do kids carry? That's his science fair project. Another guy. Will there be minorities in heaven? Oh, wow. Another one. Moon babies. Another one is about mustaches. Another one, the perfect scrotum. The perfect scrotum. Now, this is America's entries into a science fair. Now, here's another one. Liquids I like to drink. Really? Okay. This is what we've come to in the United States. Entries. One more. Just one more. How many bees can I fit in my mouth? Now, the reason I mentioned my science fair projects is I earnestly did research, took months and months to come up with this at that age, elementary school age, to create a really, I thought, innovative, interesting project. Now, the reason that it was kind of neat, and the reason it was really neat winning first prize each time, and I believe I deserved it, because they were really cool, innovative projects that no one else even thought of, and they worked. Now, that probably spurred me on, that drive to be the best I could be at that age, spurred me on to be the best I could be throughout my entire life, because I saw the results of hard work, and it was unbiased. Now, everybody wins. Now, how many bees can I fit in my mouth? I'm sure she's got a trophy for that. This moron says, what does my rectal gas smell like? But he used a different word. Really? That is a science fair project? America. And yeah.
Vince, I just got to mention this article I'm looking at here. It's titled, "Do you know that 80% of Internet news consumed by people is referred by Google and Facebook?" 80%. So this is why it dovetailed with satire and banter for evening news shows and late night shows. I mean, it's not imaginable. Well, let's put it this way: it's very believable to see how dumbed down the American people are getting. This is why I always say that we're being distracted, dumbed down, and divided. And look at the social indoctrination in these colleges, never mind elementary schools, where 90% of the degrees are close to worthless. Clemson University expecting certain people to be on time is racist. University of California has chill zones with mats and beanbag chairs for naps. University of Michigan says that Trump derangement syndrome has to enlist services of psychologists in a room full of Play-Doh and bubbles. University of Arkansas says we need to eliminate C grades and start with B-minus level. Some colleges saying that students are intimidated by masculine wood paneling. Some universities are hiring social justice warriors to tattletale on their own students' supposedly free speech. This is why the whole system needs to be revamped. We need to hire teachers who have had at least 15 years of private sector experience, successful private sector experience, and not hire so-called teachers at a school who's willing to sell out to the unions and the hierarchy above just for their own benefits, paychecks, and pensions. The whole system needs to be taken care of. And the only way parents are going to get people's attention is to homeschool their children, like you've done, Vince. 90% of the homeschool kids that I see have much better communication skills. They can look at you in the eye. They're polite. Their work ethic, their timeliness, everything is superior to public school children today. Now, there are exceptions to every rule, as there always is, but that is the norm. And I'd say the great majority of kids that I hire to do work here are homeschool children, because they do what they say and they say what they do. But nobody's perfect. But, Vince, that's why I always try to dovetail ideas and solutions, because it's gotten to the point where things are now ridiculous. And most of it is under the category of political correctness. There's a lot more than just affirmative action and quotas under for subsets under political correctness. And what it has done, and this is why I mentioned that story earlier about those cheerleaders. See, a lot of women were saying years ago, oh, we need to get rid of the male, we need to get rid of the white male, they're taking our jobs, this, that, and the other thing. But when you lower the bars of standards and expectations, decade after decade after decade after decade, and you reward mediocrity, there's no value or appreciation in everything. That includes work. And we even discussed this when Tucker Carlson and Mike Rowe on Fox News had a conversation about that, of is there any more value in work? And I've given many examples to show that political correctness has eliminated that. And, I got so many examples. There's Rachel Tripp wrote a great piece, and it's titled, "Here's Why the Women's March Isn't Awful for Women." And they talk about words like women being patsies. It's a goal to elect more Democrats. They're being used. They're being disrespected. And there's another piece right here that talks about an article, "Infidel Women, Spoils of War" by Ray Ibrahim on 2/17 of read an excerpt. Basically, all the Hollywood stars, the militant feminists, and the social justice warriors who are forever raging against sexism in the West, but who have nothing to say about Islam, female victims, are not defending women's rights, but useful idiots dedicated to subverting Western civilization, no less than the terrorists they have been apologizing and covering for. Basically, most of the comments were about the Me Too movement being a distraction to cutting up babies and pedophilia. Now, that being said, we are letting the elite poison us against ourselves by holding on to the narratives and swaying public opinion. We can talk about all this stuff all day long, but the bottom line of the divide and conquer strategy has the consequences has been lowering the bars of standards and expectations. And it happened in the workforce, and then it's metastasized like a cancer into the schools, into the families, into the divorce courts, which is somewhat, depending on what author you read, is somewhere in America now between 70 and 75%. And there's no difference in Christians versus the rest of the population. So as we allow the mainstream media and the aristocracy, who owns the talking heads, owns, bought and paid for, to demonize, discredit, and delegitimize through all mediums, especially through satire and banter, to the people who's shining light on this to try to benefit the people so they can control their own destiny. We all have to stand up for one another.
We'll be right back.
We have a break coming.
We'll be right back. I was talking with Nathan during the break, and it looks like a lot of those science fair projects that I was discussing are jokes. So I just want to make sure that we let you know that. It looked to me like, they could be real, but evidently Photoshop can be used to make people, well, we've talked about this, put people in places where they haven't been. I wanted to mention something, Rich, that you said. You were talking about Clemson University, right? And did you say that timeliness is considered racist? Is that what you said? Or could be considered racist?
That's correct.
Okay. Well, let's connect the dots there. Dr. Judy Wood, one of USA Prepare's senior instructors, used to teach at Clemson University in Clemson, South Carolina. Now, Dr. Judy Wood is a PhD professor, or instructor, and in mechanical engineering. So she wrote a book called 9/11, Where Did the Towers Go? Evidence of directed energy weapons. She, right after publishing that book, she lost her job. So, at Clemson University, where she taught. And she's been on the air with us many times, probably close to 11 times, 11 one-hour broadcasts about where did the towers go. And we were going through her book, which is like a coffee table book, page by page by page. So, interesting. So she writes this, the definitive encyclopedia as to where the towers went, evidence of directed energy weapons, and she loses her job. And that's Clemson University, the same university you're talking about where timeliness for meetings is considered racist. So exactly do you have classes like whenever people show up, and if there's students who show up at a class, well, we'll have it? Well, heck, we'll have it anyway, even if no one shows up on time? Is that what you do? How would that work? Makes no sense to me. Racist. So let's not be racist. We'll just have anything goes. We'll have a free-for-all. That way we won't be racist. It's nuts. Absolutely nuts. How about if you go shopping and you go, hey, wow, I went shopping and they weren't open. I was there on my time. Who do they think they are? Closing at 9 o'clock at night. Who do they think they are? Here I am. I'm a customer. I have rights. How come the store isn't open? Wow. We're going down. It's clear to me. Okay, Rich, back to you.
All right, Vince. Well, I got a short list here of things that have recently been considered racist. bulletproof glass, trees on a golf course, yoga, Disney movies. Pardon me while I laugh. Milk. Apparently whites don't have enough lactose intolerance.
Can we go back to bulletproof glass?
Sure.
Why is bulletproof glass? Why is bulletproof glass on the list?
Apparently, from what I read, it's a connotation or an implication that there's a bad neighborhood there. So it's racist.
Okay, I walked into a bank. In Lebanon, Missouri, years ago. I'd never been there. And they had bulletproof glass. Okay? So you walk into the lobby, and there the tellers are behind bulletproof glass. And they said, "Can you help me?" And I was looking around. I looked at the ceiling. I looked all around. I did a 360, did another 360, and I said, "I don't think so. I don't feel so safe here. You guys are so afraid you're behind bulletproof glass, and I'm not. So I don't think I need to be here." And I left. I told them I'm on the wrong side of the bulletproof glass.
See, now you can tell them that they're racist. Well, I got a couple of ways. I mean, this should actually be tongue-in-cheek satire here. Math, camouflage, Lucky Charms. Saying you're not a racist is being a racist. Welcome to America.
Huh. Saying you're not a racist is racist.
Yep.
Saying you're not a racist. Okay. Well, I don't know if I've ever said I'm not a racist. I have some very dear black friends, but I don't think I say I'm not a racist. I just don't say anything. Why would I? Why would I say anything like that? For Scheben, offgridmontana.com. Thanks so much.